Yo, what's up guys, welcome back to another video. This is a reaction to smoking versus vaping, which is worse. As someone who doesn't do either, but knows many people who do both, I mean, the smell of smoking is, for me, I think smoking is worse, right? That goes without saying. The smell is horrible, and like secondhand smoke and stuff like that, like it can affect other people to a degree. Vaping, I don't know if like smelling vaping like smells like it can affect you. I don't really know. It usually smells quite nice as well. So I mean, there's that. I've never actually vaped before, and I know nowadays, I mean, everyone vapes. They've got the little. I mean, it's getting banned in the UK, I think, or there's talk about it getting banned, or certain vapes are getting banned. The small little not unusable ones, the ones that you can't really use. What they call like elf pens or whatever. I don't know if they're even in the US or other countries. I think they probably are, but in the UK, everyone has them. Sorry, disposable ones, but they're not really disposable. Elf bars, I think they're called. Just a small little thin ones that you use once, throw it away, then get another one. Basically, never used them before, and I don't plan to. And I mean, if it was in terms of what is worse to smoke, it's obviously smoking. But then at the same time, with the elf bars, people will go through those like it's nothing, you know. So I mean, maybe that sort of contributes to a degree. So it makes, I mean, it's not going to be good for you at all. And I think it definitely is better than smoking tobacco. Again, people can do what they want. I hate the smell and I hate smoking and the whatever, but I don't. If people want to do what they want to do, it is what it is. It's not even a problem for me. Like, people make their own choices. I wouldn't like my own family to smoke, but I mean, when I was younger, when my mum used to smoke, I used to hate it. But yeah, I mean, it's one of those things, right? But we're going to check this out. Hopefully going to enjoy. Links are in the description to my Patreon, and if you're someone who used to smoke and then you started vaping, let me know how much it maybe helps you, because I guess in terms of your lungs, you will feel it a lot, right? Like when you stop smoking and for a long period of time, then you use vaping as a way to sort of escape that. I can fully understand that, to be honest, because as bad as it may be, it's got to be so much better than smoking tobacco. But we're going to check this out and see, and yeah, let's jump into this.
The eternal vape versus cigarettes debate is still raging on. In the red corner, you have cigarettes, the established.
How long has vaping even been a thing for? It's quite a recent sort of phenomenon, right? Like probably since 2010s or something like that.
Foul-smelling way to intake your nicotine with years of research behind its effects. In the blue corner, you have the newcomer, vapes, with little research behind their effects and nice-smelling clouds of nicotine to mask their dangerous nature. They've become a crowd favorite. But which alternative is worse for your health? First, let's take a look at smoking. You can smoke lots of things, obviously. Since we here at the Infographics Show don't want to condone anything illegal, let's assume smoking means regular tobacco cigarettes. Tobacco is the common name for plants in the Nicotiana genus, a type of leafy herbaceous plant native to North and South America. The one tobacco subspecies, Nicotiana suaveolens, is found on the east coast of Australia.
What?
Tobacco plants are a member of the nightshade family,
Australia.
a group of plants that also includes tomatoes and eggplants. The leaves contain a type of neurotoxin called nicotine, which acts as a natural insecticide and makes the plant unappealing to most plant-eating animals.
Wow.
But as we've seen through,
And humans thought, we should smoke that. How did humans... I mean, we've had so much time on this planet, right? We've probably tried everything possible. So they just managed to find that you can smoke this, which is pretty wild.
throughout history, with things like magic mushrooms and ghost peppers, a plant being poisonous and tasting unpleasant has never deterred humans from putting it in their mouths. Tobacco leaves have always been incredibly popular among the indigenous people of the Americas, with archaeological evidence suggesting that medicinal, recreational, and spiritual use of the plant dates back over 12,000 years. Even today, tobacco is an important part of religious rites and political agreements for the Native Americans. You've probably seen the native characters in cowboy movies smoking peace pipes before. Well, that's only one ceremonial use of tobacco in Native American culture. It's also given as an offering to the gods or as a gift to tribal leaders, and among the Cree and Ojibwe people, it's a crucial part of their purification rituals performed in a sweat lodge. When Europeans first colonized the New World, tobacco was one of the many discoveries they brought back with them, and it was an instant hit.
Wait, so before this, Europeans didn't know about tobacco? What? I guess it wasn't growing in Europe, right? So that like does make sense, but that's wild to think about.
Native Americans, Europeans took to using it as a stimulant, decongestant, and topical painkiller. but they also started smoking it recreationally. Doctors raved about its effects in medical journals.
I can't believe they used to think it was healthy. I know this is a whole different time, but just the idea of promoting it and seeing it was healthy is so insane.
One Spanish doctor even claimed it could cure 36 different illnesses in 1571. In the 1600s, there was even a popular song by Tobias Hume called Tobacco is Like Love. But like a lot of things that were used medicinally in the 1600s, tobacco's supposed benefits would later be shown to come with some pretty serious side effects. You're not watching this video from the 1600s, presumably, so we probably don't need to tell you that smoking tobacco is actually really, really bad for you. So let's go through all the negative health effects of smoking tobacco. First off, while nicotine is a very effective stimulant and a painkiller, it's
Why is bro so yellow?
extremely poisonous if consumed in large enough doses. And considering the leaf of Nicotiana tabacum, the tobacco plant most often used to make cigarettes, contains about 20,000 parts per million of nicotine, it's very possible to feel some of these effects if you smoke enough. On the mild end, nicotine poisoning can cause nausea, lightheadedness, nightmares, uncontrollable hiccuping, and flatulence. On the severe end, it can cause vasoconstriction, the shrinking of blood vessels, heart palpitations, diarrhea, severe anxiety, and even death. That's bad enough on its own, but when you combine that with the fact
Wait, of one smoke, it can cause death? Wait, let me see that again. And also diarrhea, what?
vasoconstriction, the shrinking, hiccuping, and flatulence. On the severe end, it can cause vasoconstriction, the shrinking of blood vessels, heart palpitations, diarrhea, severe anxiety, and even death.
Death from one smoke? I mean, maybe not from one smoke, but I guess when you're smoking, you're going to smoke a couple. I guess some people just have strong reactions, right?
That's bad enough on its own, but when you combine that with the fact that nicotine is also highly addictive, you got yourself a potentially lethal cocktail. Even if you decide to quit, you're still not out of the woods. You can still get nicotine poisoning from chewing nicotine gum and topical patches that smokers use to wean themselves off cigarettes.
What?
Worse than the nicotine itself is the slew of other chemicals introduced into the cigarette by the curing process. Tobacco has to be dried in the sun before being sold. This decreases the potency of the nicotine and makes it safer to consume. However, that decreased potency is quickly canceled out by the chemicals that are added during the curing process. These chemicals are meant to improve the smoking experience by doing things like helping the tobacco and cigarette wrapper burn at a more even rate and helping the body process the nicotine. But most of these chemicals are also poisonous in their own right. According to the American Lung Association, among the 600 chemicals that make up your average cigarette are ammonia, acetone, methanol, butane, and carbon monoxide.
Oh, we just got the whole flipping periodic table on it. Fair enough.
Some of those chemicals might sound
Carbon monoxide? What?
unfamiliar, so let's quickly elaborate. Ammonia is one of the chemicals that your body flushes out when you pee. It's typically also used to bleach hair and as a component of explosives. Acetone is commonly available as a paint remover. Butane is highly flammable and normally sold as barbecue fuel. Carbon monoxide isn't really used for anything.
But you can get carbon monoxide poisoning, which is why you have to get those alarms for carbon monoxide, right? That is wild.
But it is a byproduct of gas stoves and fireplaces that is so toxic you rarely hear about it outside of the sentence, make sure to replace the batteries in your carbon monoxide detector.
Yeah.
Cigarettes also contain formaldehyde, a preservative used to...
Because you can't tell if you're breathing it in, right? You just sort of, it's quite, not peaceful, I guess. I don't actually know, but you can't really sense it in the air or whatever. So you're just breathing it in without any idea.
Embalm dead bodies and museum specimens. These chemicals are already pretty scary, but the addition of fire to the equation makes things even more sketchy as it causes those 600 chemicals to combine and remix into more than 7,000 new compounds. At least 69 of these chemicals are proven to be carcinogenic, which is just a fancy way of saying they cause cancer. One of these compounds is known as freebase nicotine, which reaches your brain much faster than normal nicotine when inhaled. In addition to the increased risk for pretty much every type of cancer, smoking also increases your risk of stroke, heart disease, osteoporosis, vision problems, and diabetes. That's a result of the vasoconstriction that we mentioned earlier. When your veins shrink, oxygen can't be distributed through your body as efficiently, and that leads to a whole host of chronic health conditions. One of the most gruesome side effects of smoking is the fact that a lot of those chemical compounds stick around in your lungs even after you've exhaled. These compounds bind together with burnt particulates that enter your lungs along with the smoke, combining together into a sticky black substance called tar, which can seriously clog up your lungs and cause long-term breathing problems. Another big health risk of smoking tobacco is secondhand smoke. This is the reason why smoking indoors is banned in most places,
Yeah.
and public smoking is restricted to specific places. Once there's
I definitely feel like I had some of this probably. I mean, my parents used to always smoke outside, to be fair. So I don't know where I would have got secondhand smoke. I mean, I've got asthma, so that's probably just me being unlucky, right? And I've got quite a lot of allergies, which is why my throat always gets really phlegmy, and I've always got to clear it, and you probably notice it. Sometimes it gets worse, sometimes it gets better. Right now it's a bit bad, and for the last probably month or so, I've been having to clear it quite a lot, even in videos. That's just allergies, I'm just unlucky. But I feel like I've got the same effects as someone who would smoke, which is pretty brutal, because I've never touched a cigarette in my life.
a lit cigarette in an enclosed area, all those fun chemicals dissipate into the air, meaning that if you smoke indoors, you expose everyone around you to the same chemicals that you're putting into your own body. Obviously, it's a much smaller amount, but it can still be a significant health risk. Studies have shown that repeated exposure to secondhand smoke can increase the risk of stroke by 20 to 30% and increase the risk of heart disease by 25 to 30%. And if that wasn't bad enough, a study published in the National Library of Medicine has suggested that there might even be such a thing as third-hand smoke. It sounds crazy, but it's true according to the researchers. You can even be exposed to carcinogens left behind on surfaces that someone has recently smoked around. So yeah, your school's health class teacher was not lying. And those scary PSAs you saw on YouTube weren't exaggerating. Smoking is actually bad for you. No wonder so many people are now quitting smoking and switching to vapes. It's so much cleaner and less addictive, and oh, most vape juices still contain nicotine, even some of the ones that advertise themselves as nicotine.
Is there any positives to nicotine? Because obviously, caffeine, for example, some people may see it as not necessarily, it's nowhere near as bad as this, right? Because, I mean, caffeine does have some genuine benefits. I don't drink caffeine either, but I do obviously have it. When I have, I have chocolate quite a lot. There's obviously caffeine in that. I think there's caffeine in chocolate. And it's just in things, right? But obviously, in big doses, it's in coffee and, energy drinks. I don't drink any of those. So, I don't drink caffeine, but I know there's a lot of benefits to that because it actually does help people function. But as well as that, I think it does help with other things as well. I don't know what, but it helps with other stuff. Obviously, there's bad things towards it as well. I've got a few friends that have got such a high, and they've drunk so much caffeine, they've got such a high, what is it? So you can drink basically more without feeling the effects. What's the word called? Yeah, I feel you know what I'm trying to say. Basically, they can drink more without feeling the effects. And that's pretty bad, right? Because you can have loads of caffeine and then not notice much at all. And that's kind of scary because caffeine to a high degree is not good for you, to say the least.
Nicotine-free? Well, that's a bummer. Already, that's a mark against vaping, since everything we already said about the nicotine in cigarettes is also true for the majority of vapes. The history of vaping is much shorter than the history of cigarettes. While tobacco
I thought vaping went back hundreds of years ago.
Companies have been researching nicotine vaporizers and smokeless alternatives to cigarettes since the 60s. The first commercially available electronic cigarette was invented in 2003 by pharmacist Han Lick. Han was a heavy smoker, but after his father's death from lung cancer, he decided to quit. But like a lot of people, he struggled to quit. In 2001, he had the idea to patent an electronic alternative to cigarettes that would vaporize nicotine and give people trying to quit something to mimic the sensation of holding a cigarette. Han had lofty goals for his invention, hoping that someday it would replace cigarettes entirely. Unfortunately, it seems that might not work out. As of the writing of this video, Han Lick has still not successfully quit smoking. Since their invention in 2003, e-cigarettes are now more commonly known as vapes and have evolved into a variety of styles ranging from those designed to look like cigars or pipes to more futuristic designs that can cost up to $200. Regardless of what they look like, most vapes work the same way.
Some vapes are flipping, they're massive, right? They're proper machines. I feel like they got screens in them and everything, which is crazy.
They have a mouthpiece, a heating element, a microprocessor, a battery, and a cartridge, which is loaded with e-liquid or vape juice. The atomizer contains a heating element and a wicking material that draws the juice out of the cartridge where it gets vaporized by the heating element, hence the name. Once the liquid is vaporized, it can be inhaled just like regular cigarette smoke. On the face of it, it sounds a lot cleaner than smoking. It's basically just breathing in steam with a bit of nicotine, right? Well, just like with cigarettes, it's not just the nicotine that you have to worry about. Vaping really took off in the West in the 2010s when it evolved its own subculture. The explosion of popularity was so fast, despite most countries not yet having regulations in place, bootleg e-liquids started showing up on the markets. And just like with alcohol during Prohibition, most of the bootleg stuff wasn't exactly made with consumer safety in mind. Back in 2019, the United States experienced an outbreak of over 1,600 cases of unexplained lung injury, 34 of which were fatal. The victims of this mystery illness had one major thing in common: they were all vapers. 92% of patients admitted they'd been using black market THC vape cartridges, while the remainder reported only smoking nicotine. The CDC notes that this might not be entirely reflective of the truth, since many of these victims lived in states where cannabis was illegal at the time. The lung injury, which doctors now call e-cigarette or vaping-associated lung injury, or EVALI for short, is primarily caused by an additive called vitamin E acetate, which is a type of synthetic vitamin E typically used in topical skin cream. Research has suggested that while vitamin E acetate is harmless when applied externally, it might have adverse effects on lung functionality if inhaled. Though this is the prevailing theory, the reality is EVALI could really be caused by any number of chemicals and additives that you can find in vape juice. At first glance, vape juice's typical ingredients seem pretty simple. Most e-liquids contain propylene glycol, which is pretty common in foods and medicine as a solvent. It serves as a base liquid that suspends the nicotine and flavoring. If the e-liquid doesn't use propylene, it'll probably use vegetable glycerin, a food thickening agent, which serves the same purpose but creates a denser vapor. With those as a base, the rest of the ingredients are nicotine and whatever food coloring and flavoring the manufacturers feel like adding. A lot of people would look at those ingredients and not see a problem. The kinds of flavorings and additives in e-liquids are probably also found in most kinds of soda. So what's the issue?
Jeez.
Well, what they're not taking into account is that even though vapes use electronic atomizers instead of fire, they still create carcinogenic substances, even out of non-toxic materials. Since there's still so little regulation on the ingredients of e-liquids, there's always the risk that two perfectly innocent elements, when vaporized, could combine together to create something toxic. There are also plenty of things that, while they're safe to eat, you really shouldn't be inhaling. Take diacetyl, for example. It's got a scary-sounding name, but it's fairly common in artificial flavoring used in the US to flavor things like instant coffee, caramel, fruity drinks, and to add a butter-like flavor to microwave popcorn. It also occurs naturally in some wines. Sounds pretty tasty, but trust us when we say you do not want this stuff getting in your lungs. That's because if it does, you might develop a chronic condition called bronchiolitis obliterans. This nasty illness is colloquially known as popcorn lung due to the fact that the first recognized cases of it were all employees at a microwave popcorn factory in Jasper, Missouri. They spent so much time around the diacetyl that they ended up breathing in enough of it to become toxic. Following the discovery of the disease, a lot of food companies have switched out diacetyl for less harmful flavor compounds, but since it's still approved by the FDA, it still finds its way into a few products. As you can probably guess, flavored vape juice is one of them. A 2016 study published in Environmental Health Perspectives reported that out of 51 e-liquid flavors, 39 contained diacetyl, another chemical, cinnamaldehyde, which as you can probably guess is found naturally in cinnamon, has been shown to impair lung function in a study done by the University of North Carolina. These are just two examples, and given how inconsistent vape liquid production tends to be, that could just be the tip of the iceberg. Overwhelmingly, the advice from medical professionals tends to be that if it's not air, it shouldn't be going in your lungs. This is because it can disrupt movements of the lung cilia. Cilia are the little hair-like structures inside the lungs that move in regular wave patterns. Their job is to push bacteria and other nasties up and out of the lungs so they can be coughed out. Cinnamaldehyde, formaldehyde, and a bunch of other chemicals that end in aldehyde can have a paralytic effect on the lung cilia, which can take weeks to recover from. During that time, your lungs are missing a crucial line of defense against infection. Like we said before, formaldehyde is often added to cigarettes, and the effects of that on lung cilia of regular smokers have been well documented. The fact that other aldehydes, even the ones that are safe to eat, can have the same effect when added to vape liquid and inhaled is a relatively new discovery. Alright, so now we've explained the science behind.
I mean, that's a lot more than I thought it was going to be. I'd still probably say, overall, vaping has to be healthier, right? Because it's just the idea of like smoking, like burning whatever it is, well, tobacco, that has all those things like carbon monoxide and all these things. You're literally just breathing that in. I could be wrong though. I mean, because I guess when you vape, because you'll just vape throughout the day, right? Like, you'll probably just be at your desk and vape. It's not one of those things where like you'll just go outside to do it, right? Vaping, you can do a lot more without any like sort of inconvenience to people or to yourself. So that's kind of, I guess, a very bad thing towards vaping. I'll still go with tobacco or smoking, right? Though, like, surely that's got to be like the worst, without a doubt.
The effects of both. It's time to answer the question: is vaping really healthier than smoking cigarettes? If you asked, most experts would probably tell you yes, but only barely. E-liquid contains less nicotine than your average cigarette, and it usually doesn't contain any acetone or butane, but that doesn't automatically make it a healthier alternative. In fact, given that the effects of vaping still aren't fully understood, it is likely that new information could come out sometime in the future that proves it's just as bad.
When the generation who vape get older, that's when we're going to really know, right? That's when we're going to really know.
Bad for you as cigarettes. What about the commonly heard claim that vaping can help people quit smoking? Unfortunately, despite his hopes that his invention would make smoking obsolete, Honlick's ability to quit himself is pretty typical for a vapor. Most vapors continue to smoke cigarettes even after they start vaping.
Oh, so it's just both.
Emily Banks from the Australian National University Centre for Epidemiology has said that based on her research, there was limited evidence to suggest that vaping can help people quit smoking. As for secondhand smoke, there's not much research currently on whether or not walking through that guy's hot dog scented vape cloud at the bus stop is going to put you at risk for lung disease, but a lot of people have theorized that we ought to err on the safe side and restrict vaping in public the same way we restrict smoking. Ultimately, e-cigarettes are still such a new technology, it's impossible to know the full extent to which they can be harmful to your health. The fact of the matter is, there's probably no fully safe way to consume nicotine on a regular basis. When it comes to the question of which one is the least bad, the World Health Organization's website probably sums it up best. Both tobacco products and e-cigarettes pose risk to health. The safest approach is to use neither. Now check out This Is What...
Damn. Well, there we go. I was a pack-a-day smoker for 20 years, and I completely switched to vaping, and I can tell you that smoking is most certainly worse. Well, there we go. That's someone who's actually experienced it. My 82-year-old grandmother has been smoking most of her life. We got her a vape to try and get her away from cigarettes. Now she just sits outside with a lit cigarette in one hand and a vape in the other. Fair enough. I guess when you reach this age, you're just like, fuck it, man. Let me just enjoy this delicious tobacco. If you've done something for 50, 60 years, I can't see how anyone's going to stop that. Plus, she's got to 82, so she's done pretty well for herself. From someone who smoked, then vaped, then quit both, had a major impact. Both had a major impact on my lungs, and a massive difference in my breathing, running, swimming after quitting smoke volumes. I smoked cigarettes for 15 years, almost a pack a day. In 2019, I switched to vaping. I now smoke maybe 2 to 4 cigarettes a year and can't stand the taste anymore. I haven't been able to quit vaping though. I'm in the camp that believes both are bad for you, but yeah, cigarettes have to be worse, right? Especially if you're smoking a pack a day. That's so scary. So I'm so happy because I hate smoking, right? But I feel like any human can get addicted to it. If you start smoking, it's just one of those things that becomes a habit. But I don't have the urge for it. I've never ever had the urge for it. When I'm drunk, I don't care for it. Because obviously when you're drunk, that's sort of when some people will get the urge a lot more than other people. But that ain't me, man. But yeah, hopefully you enjoyed this reaction. And yeah, if you're someone who's done both or does both or wants to try the other or whatever, maybe this video helped you. Or yeah, let me know your thoughts. Let me know your experiences. And yeah, until next time, peace.